I don't give a good goddamn what any police officer says. It's your job as a reporter to know whether we got a good program or not.
And as a reporter, I have to ask the question.
Right now, investigators are estimating damage at more than $500,000, and they're asking themselves what could have caused this inferno. Pro-white, and his politics are a matter of race. Only the police officer who actually pulled the trigger has been put on administrative leave. There was another officer involved, and he too may take some time off. That assaulted me. It was a 14-year-old boy that kicked me in the head, and a 17-year-old man that punched me in the face, and it's hard to be angry.
Our top story tonight, the violence that broke out about an hour and a half ago on the streets of North Minneapolis.
A young teenager, 13 or 14 years old, was shot with a shotgun.
You just got a hit in the head.
There's a bruise on the brain. 16 seconds in time set the stage for the most dramatic year of my life. When I walked into North Minneapolis 1 year ago, I was confident and committed to fair and balanced reporting, armed with the trust that the truth would keep me from harm. But that trust took a beating, and the objectivity was dragged across the line.
Is he all right?
A large crowd of people started to kick him. And I tried to stop them, and when I did, something hit me in the head. And then someone kicked me in the face, and then I don't remember after that.
From a hospital bed with a brain injury and a television camera in my face, I became the story. And for the storyteller, it was the worst place to be. I hope this doesn't turn into a story about a reporter and a photographer getting beat up, because it's something so much more important than that. I believe that people scream with the loudest voice that can be heard, and that was what was happening there.
I don't remember any of this.
Less than 24 hours after he was knocked unconscious, my partner, photographer Rod Worminger, was back on the job, screening the video, analyzing the incident, looking for answers.
And that shot she took to her face, it's just devastating, you know, and it's real scary, you know, and you learn from that. And I hope Julia gets better. Getting back to work would take much longer. The injury to my brain affected my coordination, concentration, and short-term memory. But my instincts as a journalist remained. The reporter in me needed to record my recovery, and the humiliation I felt had to be set aside.
Okay? You're good. Get yourself settled down first. Great. Big steps, too. Low.
Fatigue, frustration, and medication to mask the pain. Rehabilitation took time, and the gentle touch of professionals at Sister Kinney, who taught me how to heal.
So I walked longer yesterday in this pool than I have any other time.
Did you work on some sidestepping and things, too?
The months were marked by small steps forward, growing stronger with each stride. The worst was over, celebrated by a reunion with friends who saw me through.
Way too many turnovers for the boys.
How long were you in the hospital?
I was in the hospital for like a week. The real struggle came when I had to return to the streets that threatened me, hoping to find peace.
My family probably would do the same thing.
If somebody shot you? Yeah. It was an ugly time in the world. Anyway.
This is the second time these guys tell me, you better get out of here, you better leave. You can't throw a rock at the whole neighborhood because there's some good people up there.
The bond between photographer and reporter created in that 16 seconds has given me a friend for life. But looking back still brings tears. A sick, helpless feeling, helpless. Like I'm really powerless to protect myself or anyone else if they need me. One year later, I still get blinding headaches. I'm working out regularly, trying to maintain my strength and coordination. But being back on the job, Out on the streets every day and working with people is still the best therapy, maybe even the cure. Earth beneath this southwestern Minnesota sky runs deep with red stone, said to be blessed by the Great Spirit. Red stone given to the people with the same color skin. The legend varies from tribe to tribe, but over the centuries, the Plains Indians have taught their children that pipes made from the stone are sacred.
With a pipe you pray, and you offer it to the Creator, and offer to the directions, the 4 directions, to our Mother Earth and to our Father Sky. And with this pipe, that when you pray with it, that you will have good things come to you.
Few deny the spiritual powers of the stone colored by the blood of their ancestors. Where the Indians divide is over the sale of the pipe. At the turn of the century, when the federal government began to deny the Native American the right to practice their religious freedom, the art of pipe making began to fade. Since that time, the pipe has become a source of income for its maker. But in the 1970s, when American Indians began returning to their native spirituality, the sale of the pipe became controversial.
It just bothers me and a lot of other people to see all this pipestone on display cases for sale, and to see pipes for sale. You know, it's terrible.
Joe Gishek, a Twin Cities artist, also makes his living depicting the Native American spirituality with his art. His dream is to hand down the teachings of his elders to young people struggling with Native American life. But he refuses to duplicate the image of the pipe in his paintings.
The pipe was handed down, you got to remember, through a vision by God. And that pipe was given to the people for ceremonies only.
Native Americans who believe that selling the pipe is a desecration of their religion are asking Congress to make Pipestone a sacred site, to protect it from commercialization. But the people who have lived here, who have cared for the quarries and worked the pipe for the last 5 generations, say that is a threat to their livelihood.
Fortunately, I don't have no sons, but yeah. Look, I hired someone here, so maybe.
Before Pete Muzzle steps beneath the stone, he takes time to clear his thoughts, to pray, and to thank the Great Spirit for his craft.
There's not too many that know how to quarry. You know, if the carvers now that are quarrying stone, if we no longer do this, who's going to teach next generation?
Like more than 50 other Pipestone area craftspeople, Muzzle chisels out a meager living from the rock. And like those before him, he aches with the fear that he too will lose his life on the plains.
I pulled stone out of there, and that water, it runs off. It looks just like blood. Yeah. But anyway, I try to keep clear thoughts all the time, you know. But then once in a while, I pray.
Long hours and great labor go into crafting a pipe. Traditionally, it is tailored to its keeper, then blessed by a spiritual leader. Commercially, they are made simple and sold as trinkets. But at less than $10,000 a year, these pipe makers say money is of no matter. They are willing to trade the pipe or pass them on to those in need of spiritual healing.
I've got to exist too, you know. I mean, if somebody had come along and subsidized my living and stuff, and I could just carve and give them away.
Giving them away is the only way for the Indians who will testify at the Native American religious freedom hearings on Monday. But the Pipestone craft workers have not been added to the list of those whose beliefs are being brought before Congress. They are not being given an official chance to have their voices heard. They say that the majority of the amendments to the Religious Freedom Act will protect their way of life. As for the fate of the stone, they must look to the sky. With photographer Rod Worminger, Julia Sandage, Minnesota 9 Tonight.
Some of the people who were involved and who lived through it shared their stories with News 4's Julia Sandage. Julia joins us now live on 4 from the scene of the great pileup. Julia?
Well, Bob and Stephanie, imagine an instant blindness, sudden panic, and only seconds to decide what to do. Well, that was just what it was like for the hundreds of motorists out here on I-25 this morning who drove through a thick fog into a nightmare that would take hours to end.
person stopped and everybody else couldn't. It was like chain reaction. That was bad, real bad.
Crashing stopped, the fog lifted, and reality hit. Those uninjured scrambling to prevent further tragedy. Derek Stroden rushed to the car in front of him.
We pulled one lady out of her car that was bleeding out of the head and rolled her up in blankets on the side of the road, get her out of the way of any other cars coming. And another man here, we just had to cover him up. We couldn't move him at all.
You heard things happening. People were crashing.
Steve Knight recalls the sounds and sights of imminent danger.
I just knew I had to get out of the car as fast as I could. Probably 2 or 3 minutes after that, you could still hear the cars piling up and hitting.
A frantic grandmother relives the long minutes searching for the car ahead of her, carrying her daughter and young grandson.
I knew they weren't far in front of me, but I watched every car come back by until I just spotted them, and I jumped out of the police car and told them, oh gosh, I'm so glad you're all right.
Those lucky enough to avoid injury shared cellular phones and dismay after being ticketed for careless driving.
I went kind of down between the cars trying to slow down, and I sure didn't want that truck to hit me, so I run right in the back of this pickup here.
I'm going to see if I can get him moved, then you guys can do what you need to do to get yourself
Clearing the crash sites took time and patience. Many motorists delayed for hours, but grateful for the moments when the fog lifted and safety was still in sight.
Well, as you can see, I-25 is flowing smoothly in both directions, but a little bit of a warning to all of us. We can see the fog starting to build on the creeks and the ponds nearby, the same area where that accident happened this morning, and there is black ice out there. Perhaps this first crash of the winter will be a warning to all of us. Bob and Stephanie.
Okay, Julia, thank you very much. Julia Sandage reporting from Westminster.
Empty, wind-swept miles, the bitter and beautiful between deserted towns. Sunday morning on Colorado's northeastern plains, abandoned except for a Buick coming over the rise. While most sleep, Gertrude Horn braves the weather on her weekly rounds.
In all these years, it hadn't been over 5 or 6 times that I couldn't make it. Because if the wind blows and the snow blows, you better stay home.
First stop, the Briggsdale Community Church. A calling overpowering waning health. At 89, Horn draws on faith for the needs of others. There's no time to retire, even after 62 years.
This is what I was supposed to do. The call is still with me. I'm going to speak to you today about forgiveness.
Her message is simple, this prairie preacher, if sometimes hard to hear.
God says to us, whatever the problem, just come home. And if we come home into His mercy, He forgives, He loves, and He leads.
My grandmother's been listening to Miss Horn for a lot of years, and through my grandmother, it's filtered down a lot of her teachings and everything else.
One service down, and it's back on the road, one church to go. It wasn't always such a light load. At one time, Horn presided over 6 different churches every Sunday. Thousands of miles, hundreds of lives touched by Trudy.
It's just a barren country. Of course, they were used to trees and lawns and things like that. So, but I enjoy this. This is home. Where your heart is, and that's home.
Wherever we go, it's many miles. To any city, it's 60 miles. Cheyenne is a little closer, but most of the time we stay in Colorado, in Weld County.
Be with us every day and every night in our homes.
We were here 43 years ago, and we've never stopped. We've always known where she is, and when we need her, that's where we go.
I always enjoy your services. It always means something good for me.
And another Sunday, and another service, as Minnie says Horn, as the Lord allows.
Well, I think some people quit too soon. I feel that as long as I have a message and there's a need out there, I must keep going.
on the northeastern plains of Colorado. Julia Sandage, News 4, Northern Bureau. They stand guard near the gate of the old McGraw Ranch Road, sometimes as many as 500 head, keeping watch over history. The lowland of Rocky Mountain National Park, winter grazing for elk and bighorn sheep, home to one of Colorado's oldest working ranches. But history and necessity are in conflict, and the ranch has to go.
Every time you take up any of this range with development, like in the communities surrounding the park, you remove another piece of range that the elk could make use of in the wintertime.
Rocky Mountain National Park purchased McGraw Ranch 5 years ago to provide grassland for growing herds. Maintaining 29 buildings wasn't part of the plan.
To bring the buildings up to current health and safety codes, an estimate that was a 1989 estimate was for about $500,000 plus.
Indian Head looks down on history that began in 1894. The original ranch house is bruised by vandals, the barn and outbuildings boarded up. But for years it thrived. A cattle ranch before the turn of the century, later a dude ranch at the reigns of the late Frank McGraw.
And there used to be a swimming pool here, which was great for relaxation, especially for the dudes who had very sore rears.
Lisa Parente spent her childhood exploring the high country on horseback, a guest of the McGraw Ranch. She later earned her keep making beds.
Just waking up and seeing all the animals just running around and having the best breakfasts in the world by Bogey the cook.
They had a full-course dinner. Every family got to sit at their own table. And
hospitality served up the old-fashioned way by a family who gave city folks a taste of the Old West.
This was a little ice house, and they cut ice from the pond, and they stored it there.
The history of McGraw Ranch is told best by its matron, Ruth McGraw. At 77, she still lives on part of the land and rides its ridges on horseback. If she could, she would buy back the rest.
I'd come down and have a great time running it as a guest ranch again. But it isn't going to happen that way. We know that. Time goes on.
Rather than watch her memories be destroyed, she's agreed to let Rocky Mountain National Park sell or tear down the buildings.
The real beauty of this place is the trails and the outdoors, and that's where a lot of the happy memories are also. So I won't feel too badly. I think I'd feel much worse if the building stood here and just dropped down piece by piece.
The outhouse was one of the original 4 buildings on the McGraw Ranch. You can see from the rustic Colorado architecture the history. But when the rest of the ranch is torn down, the outhouse and its architecture will be lost.
to see the buildings go down is going to be real sad. But things change, and the buildings are buildings, and the memories are in our hearts.
To preserve history for the hundreds who come through the trailhead at McGraw Ranch, Rocky Mountain National Park is preparing old photographs and a story for a wayside exhibit. Perhaps McGraw's son-in-law could write a poem.
If buildings could speak, what a tale they could tell. The life that passed through their doors.
The happiness here can still be enjoyed by people just getting out and enjoying it.
For it's the people that really make a place, and the love that they carry to their ends.
I'll just tell you the story of
Julia Sandage, News 4, Northern Bureau.
It was 20 years ago now that angry parents in the Twin Cities refused to send their children to public schools.
The courts gave them a choice: find an alternative or face incarceration. And that's when the American Indian Survival School first opened its doors.
Revolutionary educational center and cultural center, still alive and well today and celebrating its 20th anniversary.
And Julia Sandage spent the last few days at the heart of the earth and joins us now with a report on how the school is surviving.
Well, Robin, with a dropout rate of less than half that of Indian children in public schools, it's safe to say that the Heart of the Earth is doing more than surviving. It is sending graduates into the world with a sense of culture and pride in their people.
The sacred pipe is passed from elder to child, generation to generation. With each puff, prayers are sent for peace and understanding to a grandfather looking on from above.
We call it Togashila, grandfather, the creator, the superior of the universe. He's also God. God comes in different colors, and he can hear any language.
The traditions of the Ojibwe and Lakota Indians have been carried on through the Heart of the Earth Survival School for 20 years, years plagued by poverty and political battles. But throughout, the pipe ceremony has continued. A circle begins and ends each week to give the children something to believe in.
He's watching us. He's looking at us every move we'll make. A newborn child will see him, but as an adult, I will never see the grandfather.
How could you start out and say that it's your favorite thing?
My favorite.
Debbie Ironshell has trouble getting started on her paragraph, but has survived the life of an alcoholic's child. She came to the Heart of the Earth after leaving a homeless shelter, where she lived while her father sobered up.
There's a lot of Indian people that they're together, not fighting or drinking. That there's families instead of separation.
The challenges outside of school seem minor to an 11-year-old girl.
How many girls you got here? 1, 2, 3.
Today, she's taking on the boys at what she does best.
It'll keep me healthy and not to think about doing drinking or anything. It helps me get my feelings out and I can have fun and don't have to worry about anything.
Traditional dance and music are basic to the Indian culture. To learn is required. To excel is a gift.
They need to have something that they can hold on to that belongs to them. In this Indian culture, singing and dancing is something that no one can take from them.
How many winters have you survived?
How many winters are you? How do you say it? Right.
Many winters have passed since Vivian Stately learned the Ojibwe language. What was handed down through oral history is now written. Through her teaching, the students become bilingual.
Or ni manji aya. If they don't learn the language, our culture is going to die out.
The colors have begun to blend like the tribal lines. Most of the 250 students who attend Heart of the Earth are of mixed heritage. Almost all live below the poverty line, but here they are taught to hold their heads high.
There's a real natural instinct that they have inside. A lot of them already know how to draw, and it's just a matter of bringing it out.
As the week's lessons come to a close, the students are sent home with the smell of sage in their hair and a song of eagles in their hearts. Somewhere in the circle is We All Wash Day We, a pretty woman who evokes good feelings. This is the Indian name given to Debbie as a baby. It is the word that describes the young woman she has become. A celebration of Heart of the Earth's 20 years will be held at the weekend of March 27th at the Minneapolis Convention Center. The powwow will highlight the Indian dance and the artwork and benefit the Heart of the Earth Scholarship Fund.
Julia, it's so beautiful to see kids learning so much about their culture, and we hear so much controversy lately about alternative schools like this. Can anyone go to the Heart of the Earth?
The Heart of the Earth School is open to anyone. There is no requirement due to race. And it's also interesting that there is no tuition charged. It is funded by grant money and government money, so anyone can go, and it's not based on your economic situation.
Really beautiful.
So many reports recently pointing out that self-esteem is a key to success in life and education, and here they're getting a sense of understanding of pride they can have in themselves and in their heritage, where they come from.
Yeah, and you left there with that same sense of pride, so you could see it really working.
And cut the dropout rate by 50%.
50%.
Very effective. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Julie.